competitive structure that you're affected in. That's a bit of a recap on pretty much everything we talked about. The discussion about no promotion and relegation, clubs possibly determining where their team should be as far as the next level of competition. Self-determination. We won't do this exercise. This has been designed obviously to do a little exercise now and get some feedback from people. This was something that was done earlier in the year, so we'll just move through it. But I want to ask you, what do you think? Any thoughts, positive or negative? No comment?
I only have one.
Please, you say my date.
Save you. Joe actually asked me to do this.
Yes, that's it.
No. When we were talking about the long-term player development, OPDL, and they talked about the first team coming in and the costs associated with it, the first thing I thought of was the cost per player that is going to be in the backs of the parent will then be open to the rich, not the poor kid.
Yep, that's, as soon as you elevate, there's a cost to things, right?
Absolutely.
Facilities,
But
license.
you've taken away your concept and given it only to the rich. That poor kid that his parents split up or whatever is not gonna be able to do this. So what happens to that kid who is an outstanding?
Well, the thought is, I'll tell you what the thought is because it's come up in differently. We've discussed it internally. The thought is that that part of the funding that goes on is to accommodate maybe less fortunate players. You know, so part of the budget that gets put together will be allocated. I mean, we do that now in all our clubs. I know every club.
Financial aid,
Yeah,
but it's
the
different
dollar.
if you're subsidizing a kid for $500 as opposed to $3 grand.
That's right. That's right. The same criteria will apply. So the idea is not to shut those kids out. The idea is to find ways to offset some of those costs. I mean, right now, you know, it's amazing, but provincial players, you're selected for the provincial team. And it costs you about $2,000 for the provincial program. It's sad, in a sense, because, you know, but the whole cost of running it just don't permit it.
I have to be very honest, having 5 children,
Yeah.
I couldn't afford
No,
that.
you could. Now, there's ways and vehicles that they do to help fundraise and so on, sponsorship and so on. So they give you tools to try and offset that. But, you know, it's an issue. As costs go forward, you know, the idea is not to shut people down, right? We have to find ways to overcome it. We have to deal with those exceptions.
And our club, even though it's a rare club, we don't have a house league. We've fought, and we're very lean, and to keep our costs down for players, so that we don't lock out that kid that doesn't have the parents that have money for them to play.
Yeah, those are issues that have to be addressed going forward, for sure. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
One of the things that I don't understand is the absolute massive shock of this system. From start playing when 4 or 5 years old, play when I'm 6, 7, 8, festival, no scores, no standing, good, having fun, 12 years old, I get my teenage years, boom, OPDL. Opposite end of the spectrum. Nutritionist, physiotherapist, National A, National B, 4 times a week, 12 months a year. Why does the OSA believe that you can absolutely shock a system in a small period of time and think that that's going to do better for the overall development of the game?
It's not all about the OPDL. The amount of kids that are going to be playing in OPDL are going to be, it's not going to be a large percentage. The majority of the kids are going to stay in the regional leagues the way it is.
Okay, so let's just take the 6% as you described. Those
Yeah.
6% of kids that you define as elite kids,
Yeah, well, it might,
or smaller, whatever,
yeah,
it's a small number.
it's gonna be much smaller.
Whatever the number is.
Yeah, yeah.
Those kids have now grown up playing soccer under an entirely different philosophy and environment. And we will now thrust them into the opposite end of the spectrum.
But you don't have to thrust them.
I'm just talking about elite kids, because part of the overarching strategic intent of Wellness the World Cup was to increase our ranking from 65 in the world to something better.
Right.
So I guess one of the things that I wrestle with is, historically, and we talk about old school soccer in Ontario, a lot of us who are coaches played sure the old school soccer regime.
Yeah.
It was a gradual kind of journey towards meritocracy. This is not a gradual journey towards meritocracy. This is U4 to U12 is this end of the spectrum, and at U13, boom, is the other end of the spectrum. That's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, listen, I hear what you're saying, but that's always for the players. See, there's this structure in place now. Those kids go into the OISL.
Mhm.
You know, it's the same step, if you will.
Oh, but don't forget, when we were younger, okay, I don't necessarily agree with what we did when we were younger. When we were 8 years old playing 11v11, I don't agree with that.
Of course.
But I think there were some things in the historical regime that got the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid ready for the 13-year-old IOSL. I'm fearful that we're doing this as an experiment, and we're gonna have a shock system of kids where, as you described it, a more professional environment. Many of them aren't gonna be used to that, right? And it's not just the kids, it's the parents. Parents are gonna have been used to the softer side of soccer. Coaches are gonna have to be used to the softer side, right?
There's gonna be an adjustment, you know. I mean, years ago, small-sided games, going into a community saying we better play 4v4. People look at you know, like you were from Mars, right? That was only 15, 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that time was similar, not to this degree, but it was similar. We're introducing small-sided games, training small-sided games.
The other question I have for you is, how do we ensure that the OPDL does not become a 416-centric league?
Well, you can't ensure that, but I can tell you that there'll be more franchises in a larger geographic area. The challenge like now, that doesn't change. The challenge now will be to create other areas. So Hamilton, for instance, how many clubs can realistically move into that street? How many clubs in Hamilton can move into an OPDL street?
None.
So they have to maybe find ways differently to do it. You know, there's talks in other areas about merging. There's talks about contributing together towards a program, maintaining the base program, but now make sure that we're pushing the kids through a stream where there's some cooperation among some clubs. And some other areas are doing that. I'm not sure exactly what's happening here. Very uncomfortable stuff like that, because it forces people to work together if we want to get there. The other thing it's going to do, initially, it's, you know, and there is a concern that if someone gets OPDL status and people migrate to there, you know, how will another club, because this opens up every 2 years, so every year there'll be opportunities for clubs to apply for OPDL. But you know what it's like sometimes, if all of a sudden you lose your core foundation, and you don't have that base, how do you get there? Those are concerns that I see in discussions we've had. I believe that the changes that will take place to stream, and if it's managed properly, will be the best thing for the players. The transition that's going to take together is going to be missing for players, for parents, for clubs, for districts, for organizations. But I think once it's established a little bit, you know, to have kids go to that top level, male and female, and have that opportunity, if they want it. If they don't want it, they don't have to go there. You have kids in your club now that are talented, right? They don't wanna make the commitment, they're playing, they'd rather play in an L4 because of their friends and not go there. I think that